go away.
Split the baby, yeah.
Yeah, but the king doesn't engage with the theater of litigation at all.
This raises an important question. How should a functional system handle disputes that devolve into pure he said, she said scenarios?
Right, what do you do?
The king realizes that if he engages with their verbal arguments, he is playing the borrower's specific game.
Because the borrower is a manipulator.
Exactly. The borrower is a superior manipulator of perception. If the king listens strictly to the rhetoric, he risks being swayed by the borrower's calculated charisma.
Or just the divided opinion of the public gallery.
Precisely.
So the king opts out of the verbal debate entirely. He doesn't rush his judgment just to appear decisive. He employs this massive intentional pause.
And that pause is a calculated refusal to be swept up in the borrower's manufactured high-pressure reality.
He just stops the clock.
Yeah, the king is implementing an objective heuristic. He recognizes that human language in an adversarial setting is inherently compromised by self-interest.
Everybody lies when they're on trial.
Right. To find the actual truth, he has to strip away the human capacity for performance and deception. He needs a data point that cannot be spun, manipulated, or argued with using legal loopholes.
Which leads directly to his unorthodox, brilliant solution. The king announces, quote, "Let us see whom the horse chooses."
That's a great moment.
He orders the actual asset to be brought into the center of the courtroom. He shifts the entire burden of proof away from flawed human arguments and places it onto the silent behavioral testimony of the animal itself.
It is essentially an analog biological polygraph test.
That's exactly what it is. He's looking for an involuntary response that cuts through the web of lies.
And it's an incredibly elegant heuristic, because the king understands a fundamental truth about relationships. While you can fake ownership through physical possession, you cannot fake familiarity.
Wow, yeah.
From an ethological perspective, a horse is a prey animal. It relies entirely on pattern recognition and psychological safety to survive.
So knows who takes care of it.
Exactly. The animal does not understand the abstract legal concept of a title, but it deeply, instinctively understands routine, care, and safety.
And the physical execution of this test is where the abstract philosophy becomes so tangible, the borrower steps forward first, right?
Yeah.
And the source vividly describes him stretching out his hand, and the horse immediately pulls away. The text notes a specific harshness to his reach.
The reach of someone accustomed to taking.
Yes, someone trying to enforce control. And then the trader approaches. He doesn't command the horse. He makes no grand speech to the court to prove his case. He simply gently lifts his hand, and the horse moves toward him, resting its head on his shoulder.
It's really beautiful. That physical interaction visually and undeniably unpacks the core difference between holding an object and truly possessing it.
The reins versus the relationship.
Exactly. The borrower held the reins, but those reins were merely a mechanism of coercive control, not connection. The horse's biological reaction proves that a living bond has a distinct, unforgeable signature.
You just can't fake it.
You can steal the physical vessel, you can steal the optics, but you cannot steal the time, consistency, and care that went into building that underlying trust.
So what does this all mean? Let me explore that distinction between control and connection. The borrower's entire guiding philosophy, what the world sees is what the world believes, completely collapses the second it is tested against an objective reality.
It shatters.
The crowd might have been thoroughly fooled by the sight of him holding the reins in the market, but the asset itself recognized the fraud instantly. The world's mistaken belief didn't alter the underlying truth one bit.
And the king's final verdict really cements this realization. He states to the court, ownership is not always proved by possession. Sometimes it is revealed by trust.
It's profound.
It really is. This isn't just a poetic feel-good ruling. It's a profound legal and philosophical observation about the severe limits of physical possession.
They needed biological evidence.
Yes. The court ultimately relied on the irrefutable biological evidence of an earned relationship over the superficial evidence of physical proximity.
Let's examine the immediate psychological aftermath of that verdict. The source says the false claimant visibly lowers his head and the horse is returned to the trader.
Game over.
Yeah, the borrower wasn't outdebated. He was defeated by the sheer, undeniable weight of reality. But look at the incredible fallout for the borrower. He permanently traded his reputation, his friendship with the notoriously honest trader, and his social standing in the community.
All of it.
All for a temporary joyride on an animal that actively disliked him. Was the pull of greed and cognitive dissonance really that blinding?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, The story vividly illustrates the destructive, exhausting psychological burden of unearned possession.
The burden of it,
When
right?
you take something that does not inherently belong to you, whether it's a physical object, unearned credit for a project at your workplace, or a position of authority you haven't worked for, you are instantly saddled with the heavy anxiety of the imposter.
Because you know it's fake.
Exactly. You have to constantly actively maintain the illusion. The borrower's arrogance in the market wasn't just simple greed. It was an exhausting, continuous performance required to sustain the lie he had trapped himself in.
Oh man, that completely reframes the narrative for me. The borrower wasn't just holding the horse, the lie was holding him.
That's a great way to put it.
He was a prisoner to his own fabricated optics. Which brings us perfectly to the deeply reflective closing of our source material. The text concludes with this thought, quote, "From the moment we treat what was entrusted to us as our own, something within us begins to shift. Some things can be held, but only a few things truly belong. Taking is easy. Being worthy is harder."
Wow. That specific distinction between taking and being worthy is the ultimate crux of the text's analysis on human character.
Taking versus earning.
Right. Taking is purely mechanical. It requires absolutely nothing more than physical opportunity and a temporary lapse in moral judgment.
Just grabbing the reins.
Exactly. Being worthy, however, is an ongoing, active, often difficult process. It requires daily consistency, care, and undeniable integrity. The borrower catastrophically failed the test of worthiness because he deeply desired the public prestige of the graceful white horse without being willing to put in the quiet, unseen labor required to actually earn its loyalty.
It really forces you to think about how often in modern society we try to bypass that rigorous process of becoming worthy.
Oh, all the time.
We want the impressive title without developing the requisite leadership skills. We want the deep trust of our peers without establishing the long track record of honesty. But the source makes a compelling argument that reality eventually always has a way of exposing the shortcuts.
It always does.
The horse, whatever that represents in your life, will always pull away from the person who hasn't put in the actual work.
Precisely. The story serves as a systemic warning about the fragility of borrowed power. When we attempt to possess things that we have not genuinely earned, we live in a state of constant vulnerability. We are always, on some subconscious level, waiting for the moment the horse pulls away and the illusion shatters.
We've traced a truly remarkable arc today. We started with a simple, perhaps overly optimistic loan based on the truth default theory.
Right.
We watched that trust curdle into a brazen theft justified by intense cognitive dissonance and the weaponization of public optics.
And then the trial.
Yes. And finally, we saw how an objective heuristic, a brilliantly simple test of a biological living bond cut completely through the dense noise of human deception. We learned that while trust certainly makes us incredibly vulnerable to manipulation, it is also the only irrefutable proof of true belonging in the end.
It leaves us with a powerful reminder regarding how we navigate the world. While deception must constantly shout and perform to maintain its fragile illusion, the truth can always afford to speak very quietly.
Let me bring this directly to you, the listener, before we wrap up today. We all operate daily within these invisible tethers of trust. I want you to thoughtfully consider the borrowed goodwill currently in your possession.
Good question.
It could be a leadership role where a team implicitly relies on your guidance. It could be a personal relationship where someone has made themselves deeply vulnerable to your judgment. It could be a rare opportunity handed to you simply because someone else vouched for your character. Are you treating those intangible assets with the strict reverence they require?
Or taking them for granted.
Right. Have you slowly drifted into treating what was entrusted to you as your inherent, unquestionable property? Are you merely holding the reins, or have you done the consistent work to be truly worthy of the trust placed in you?
As you consider those dynamics in your own life, I leave you with this final, lingering question to mull over. If the things you claim to own in your life right now, your titles, your relationships, your professional reputation, if they were suddenly given a voice today, would they pull away from your grasp, or would they willingly rest their head on your shoulder?
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We will be waiting for you next time.